I still can't explain what happened that night. This happened when I was around 12 years old, and it's something I've never been able to explain. Even now, I can remember it as clearly as if it happened yesterday. Every now and then, I find myself replaying that night in my head, trying to make sense of it, but I never can. For years, I've been telling myself to write this down, so here it is. My parents owned a restaurant, which meant they worked late most evenings. Because of that, my older brother and I would spend hours outside with the other kids who lived in the neighborhood. We'd play football, hide and seek, ride our bikes, and explore the area until our parents finished work. My brother, I'll call him Tom, always took me everywhere with him, so although I was younger, I spent most of my time with his friends. One thing about our neighborhood was that you could always tell when someone was home. At night, the lights would shine through the blinds, and you'd often see the flicker of a television. It was just one of those places where everyone knew everyone. That becomes important later. One of Tom's friends, I'll call him Richard, was fascinated with spiritism. At least, that's what he called it. He was always talking about strange games like the compass game and other rituals that kids somehow got into. He claimed that if you followed the rules correctly, you could communicate with spirits or even see deceased relatives. I never really believed any of it. I was only 12 and most of the conversations happened between Richard and my brother while I quietly listened nearby. Then one night, everything changed. I remember it was dark and we were standing near a row of parked cars where we usually hung around. Richard looked completely different from his normal self. He was crying. I'd never seen him cry before. My brother walked over to him and asked, "What's wrong?" Richard looked terrified. "This is driving me crazy," he said. "I'm really scared. I've been playing those stupid games and strange things have started happening." He pointed towards the house of an elderly man who lived nearby. I'll call him Bart. Bart had recently passed away. Richard explained that ever since Bart died, he'd noticed something that didn't make sense. During the day, the house looked exactly as you'd expect, empty. But at night, the lights would come on, and you could see what looked like a television flickering through the half-closed blinds. As he pointed, my brother and I looked over. Sure enough, the lights were on. From where we were standing, we could clearly see light coming through the windows. There was also the unmistakable flickering glow that looked exactly like a television playing inside. Then Richard quietly said something that made my stomach drop. "Bart died last week." My brother and I just stood there, staring at the house. Trying to think logically, my brother finally said, "If Bart's dead and nobody lives there anymore, someone must have broken in. We should call the police." Richard was shaking. I'd never seen him like that before. He'd always been the toughest kid in the neighborhood. He'd grown up in a rough area and wasn't the type of person who scared easily. Around that time, another neighbor arrived in his car. He was older than us, probably somewhere in his 20s or 30s. As soon as he saw Richard, he knew something wasn't right. After hearing what we'd seen, he called the police. We waited for what felt like an hour or two before a police car finally arrived. Richard explained everything to the officers. After listening, they decided to enter the house in case someone had broken in. They used a tool to unlock the front door and disappeared inside. We stood there waiting. A few minutes later, the officers came back outside. One of them told us there was nobody inside. No lights, no television, nothing. I remember feeling completely confused. Then one of the officers said something I'll never forget. He told us they'd checked the electrical supply and the main fuse had actually been removed by the electricity company. From what I later learned, that's something that can happen when a property has no active electricity account. The house shouldn't have had any power. It was impossible. Then something happened that's always stayed with me. An elderly woman suddenly appeared. I don't remember seeing her walk towards us. I don't remember where she came from. She simply appeared. She looked directly at me, my brother, and Richard. Then she calmly said each of our names before saying, "Don't worry, I'm taking care of this house." That's the last thing I remember. Everything after that is blank. I don't remember going home. I don't remember speaking to the police again. I don't remember anyone explaining what had happened. It's as if that part of the night was erased. Even now, all these years later, I still think about it. Who was that woman? How did she know our names? How did we all see lights and what looked like a television in a house that didn't even have electricity? I carried on playing in that neighborhood for years afterwards. Eventually, another family moved into Bart's house and nobody ever mentioned that night again. But I never forgot it. Every so often, I still find myself replaying those moments in my head. The lights, the empty house, and the old woman who seemed to appear from nowhere. It was in the back stall, tucked between the toilets and wall. There was blood everywhere. On the wall, on the floor, in a big, sticky pool. I got a little bit of it on my shoe. It was coagulated and viscous, like honey. The dead man's mouth was wide open. So were his eyes. His head was unnaturally tilted, in a way that hurt my own neck to even look at. I left the bathroom immediately. I was only trying to kill some time and avoid the awkward conversation at the table. I returned to my seat. The conversation was still going. I looked down at my drink. The ice was beginning to melt. In a few short minutes, the whole thing would be watered down and flavorless. I stirred it a little with my straw. Then something broke me out of my trance. "I'm gonna hit the bathroom before we get out of here." My friend Sam stood up, sucking the excess barbecue sauce off of his fingers and wiping them on his pant leg. I kept my eyes fixed on the door of the men's room. Conversation resumed around me. Without breaking line of sight with the bathroom door, I picked up the last chicken wing and took one nervous bite before dropping it back down on the plate. My appetite was gone. I looked down at my shoe, moving my toe slightly. I heard that sticky sound against the tile of the floor. I looked up again at the bathroom door. Sam walked out, cracked his fingers, looked around him, and then made his way back to the table. I heard a familiar sound as he approached the booth. That same sticky sound. I looked down at his shoes and saw, to my horror, bloodstains. And to follow, a trail of bloody footprints leading back to the bathroom door. "You guys ready?" He glanced at his phone for the time. "Movies in 10. If we leave now, we might miss most of the previous." The girls agreed and stood up, throwing down a few 5 for the tip. "You coming?" My girlfriend was staring at me. I laughed off my awkward delay and stood up, walking out with them. Before we left, I glanced back at the bathroom, a trail of bloody footprints left from the door. My stomach turned a little bit, and then I stepped out into the parking lot. The girls were just ahead of Sam and I, walking towards the car. "Did you see that in there?" I asked him. "See what?" Sam said, looking back with an anticipatory grin. On any normal night, I might be about to tell him about some weird-looking guy, or some ridiculously corny t-shirt I had seen in the restaurant, and we would have laughed at a stranger's expense, like we had 100 times before. In the bathroom, my tone was sharp, and it deflated his smile. "No, I didn't see anything," Sam said, starting to sound a little worried. "In the back stall?" I lifted my foot, indicating the blood on my shoe. "Are you two bums gonna unlock the car?" We looked up. Our girlfriends were looking at us, mildly annoyed. Sam clicked the button on his keys. He climbed into the driver's seat. The girls got in the back, and I in the passenger seat. While the overhead light was still on, I could see that I was getting blood from my shoe on the floor of his truck. He was too. "Ah, shit. I'm sorry, man." "What for?" he asked, shutting his door. The light faded off, and the truck went dark. Forgetting all of this shit on the floor. He clicked the overhead light back on and looked over. Nothing was there. "You good?" "Yeah, I guess I just had a few too many beers." "You didn't even have a beer?" Sam laughed and clicked the overhead light off. Sam kept the conversation going between us while I kept my eyes down on the floorboard, straining through the dark, hoping to catch a glimpse in the flash of a passing streetlight of what I knew was down there, a smeared, bloody footprint. The girls seemed to be continuing a conversation from earlier in the back. I only caught little snippets. That's what I like most about him. He's not him, like not even close. No, he always asks, and he understands why I say no a lot. Whatever Tara may have been adding between Heather's words, I was totally unaware of. It was precisely that conversation that I had tried to escape from into the bathroom. The place was packed. We parked towards the back of the parking lot. The red glow of the theater sign reflected off of rain puddles on the pavement. We stepped inside. Sam and Tara stood in line in front of Heather and I. My eyes stayed on my shoes. The blood was still there. I still felt the bottom of my foot sticking to the floor a little bit, even after having deliberately stepped in a puddle. Sam didn't seem to see it, not on his shoes or mine. I could see the bloody footprints he was leaving behind, even here in the theater. No one else seemed to notice them, though. I was baffled. I feel like I should have called the police back in the restaurant. Maybe ran out screaming, caused a big scene. Then everyone would know. Then I wouldn't have this pit in my stomach. Then no one would ask me, if I ever did speak up, "Why didn't you say something sooner?" As it sits now, I think if I just continue to ignore this, forget what I saw in the back stall of the men's room, someone else will find it. By now, I'm sure someone already has. Maybe Sam didn't go all the way to the back stall, never caught a glimpse of what I had seen. The blood from that back stall had probably run all the way across the floor by the time he went in. He got a little unnoticeable amount on his shoe. That's why he thinks I'm acting strange. He'd be acting the same way if he were me. "Next!" came a slightly annoyed voice from behind the register. I looked up. "Oh, two for, same as the two in front of you, I'd assume." "Yeah, yes, please." I handed the lady a 20 and took my 5 and change. Went to get some popcorn and drinks for Heather and I while she caught up to Tara and Sam. When I caught back up with them, Sam was giving a demonstration on the proper way to salt and butter popcorn. The girls were ignoring him. I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't. I couldn't get my shoe to stop sticking on the floor, no matter how hard I wiped it against the carpet. Theater 8 was the smallest theater in the whole building, at the far end of the long hallway. We weren't seeing the big summer blockbuster that everyone else was there to see. The movie we were watching, whatever it was, had already been in theaters a week longer than it deserved, and anyone who even wanted to see it already had. No one was there but us. Knowing Sam and Tara, I knew they had no intention of actually watching much of the movie. Nervously, I nipped at some of the popcorn, all the while trying to discreetly wipe the bottom of my shoe against the floor. No matter how hard I tried, the sticky, now almost gum-like blood would not come off. "What's the matter, honey?" Heather said, placing her hand on my shoulder. "Oh, it's just this. I don't know what. It's stuck on my shoe. It's driving me up a wall," I whispered. "Well, go to the bathroom and try to wipe it off then," she said. I stood, sliding past Sam and Tara, already making out. The theater, which had just a moment before been buzzing with energy, suddenly felt empty, bordering on desolate. I made my way towards the bathroom and stepped up to the sink immediately. I grabbed a few paper towels, wet them, and began to try and wipe the blood off of the sole of my sneaker. It defied all logic. It stayed there, as sticky as it was when my foot first touched it. I knelt down to take my shoe off. In doing so, I happened to glance under the stalls. My heart stopped when my eyes landed on a pair of legs, stretched out as though someone sat on the floor of the back stall. I stood, slowly walking towards the back stall. The sticking sound of my shoe against the tile, like someone peeling tape off of a roll, filled the room. When I opened the stall door, I don't know what I expected to see, but it certainly wasn't the same dead body that I had seen in the restaurant. Though that is exactly what I saw. The same face, the same blood splattered on the walls and pooling up on the floor, flowing out of his mouth, nearly dried, covering his shirt and the front of his pants. This was my opportunity to make up for what I had neglected to do the first time. I could run out of there screaming, crying, begging for someone to call the police. Yet none of that came to me in the moment. Not genuinely. I turned around and walked out of the bathroom, went back down that long hallway and returned to my seat in Theater 8, next to Heather. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. Sam and Tara turned towards me as well. There was a dead body in the bathroom, back stall, blood everywhere. He was at the restaurant too. Heather looked horrified, in a sort of, I don't get the joke kind of way. "What did he just say?" Sam asked, almost laughing at the absurdity of what I had just said. I looked at him as gravely as I could. "Go to the bathroom, go to the back stall, and tell me what you see, Sam." Smile was once again gone, and he rose and left the theater. The three of us sat there in silence. I could feel Tara and Heather's eyes on me, but I turned towards the screen, started eating popcorn, aggressively shaking my leg. The distinctive pop of my shoe against the floor was like a metronome set too fast. Tick, 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 tick. Neither of the girls spoke. I don't blame them. I don't really know what I would say either, dude. You are messed up for that. I heard Sam say, loud enough to hear over the movie as he stepped back into the theater. The metronome stopped. I turned around to see him, already reclaiming his seat. "What do you mean?" Heather looked at me, confused, a bit upset. "This is not funny. Seriously, what kind of joke is that? It's not a... I don't know. Guess it sounded funnier in my head." I'm sorry, guys. I returned to my popcorn. Bouncing my leg again, I realized for the first time in at least an hour that my foot wasn't sticky anymore. I didn't know what to take from that, other than relief. Like a bad dream was over. I just didn't know you could have dreams without falling asleep. The movie ended an hour or so later. We walked through a mostly empty parking lot back to the car. My little joke had all but ruined the night. As we drove back by the restaurant, I suddenly felt the urge to go in and check the bathroom in there one more time, just to confirm that it was all some kind of delusion. Hey, I think I lost my keys in there. Can you pull in really quick? Just want to check. Hope they aren't in the theater. Yeah, you and me both. They closed it right after we left. I was already on my way inside before he had finished talking. It was mostly dead at that hour. A few patrons at the bar. Looked like they'd been there all night. I stepped inside the restroom, went straight for the back stall. Nothing was there. No blood, no police tape, no body, nothing. I took in a deep breath as true relief washed over me for the first time in hours. What was that? What had I just been through? I stopped to wash the popcorn butter off of my hands. I heard the bathroom door open. Looking up in the mirror, I saw Heather's old boyfriend walking in. I prayed he didn't notice me. Well, look who it is, he said, slapping me on the shoulder. I turned to face him. His face was friendly, but his tone said otherwise. I looked at him, and a rage built up inside of me that I had never felt before. There is a dead body in the men's room. It's in the back stall, tucked between the toilet and wall.